Most people never face danger in their daily life. For the average person, driving a car is probably the most hazardous activity in any given day. But there are some places on Earth where danger is lurking behind every corner. From underground fire pits to islands coated in snakes, today we're counting down the top 10 most dangerous places in the world. Australia has a reputation as one of the most deadly places on Earth. It has more deadly snakes than any other country, the animal with the strongest bite in the world, and so many venomous and poisonous animals that it discourages travellers from visiting the outback. But one island in particular has earned the title of most dangerous place in Australia. Its deadly beaches are home to practically everything you want to avoid if you're trying to stay alive. In fact, rescue choppers are frequently flown into the area to save visitors who find themselves plagued with medical emergencies. First of all, the island is an actual favourite hangout for young great white sharks. However, it's known for both shark attacks and dingo attacks as well. Dingoes are a breed of feral dog native to Australia, and like any wild, undomesticated predator, they can be extremely dangerous to humans. And just to make the beach even more terrifying, there are numerous stinging jellyfish that have venom so powerful that swimmers must receive treatment at a hospital. Fraser Island is extremely remote, so travellers won't have access to a hospital for multiple hours, meaning that these stings can even be fatal. There's a good chance that you have already heard of the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Following a major earthquake, a 15-metre tsunami disabled the power supply and cooling of 3 Fukushima Daiichi reactors, causing a nuclear accident on the 11th of March 2011. All 3 cores largely melted in the first 3 days. What followed was complete panic. With the exception of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, this was the worst nuclear meltdown in history. Official figures show that there have been well over 1,000 fatalities from maintaining the evacuation of surrounding towns. In the following years, no one has been allowed to visit this tragic site. Though Japan's government claims that there have been no health issues since the date of the accident, most locals are skeptical. The health hazards of being exposed to such extreme radiation may continue for generations. What's worse, by 2022, the power plant will run out of space for contaminated water, meaning that they will pour the remaining water into the Pacific Ocean, effectively poisoning anyone who dares to visit the ocean. As a result, the surrounding area is still considered one of the most dangerous places in the world, and it's still forbidden for Japanese citizens to visit the area. Ilha de Queimada Grande, also known as Snake Island, is an island off the coast of Brazil in the Atlantic Ocean. The island is well named. It's home to 1 snake per every square foot, most of which are fatally venomous. Legends even state that if fishermen brought their boats too close to the island, snakes would swim out and devour them. Pit vipers make up the majority of the island's snake population. This is particularly alarming because these snakes constitute 90% of Brazil's snakebite fatalities. Their venom proves fatal in only an hour. Because the island is 90 kilometers off the coast of Brazil, there is virtually no chance of making it back to shore in time to receive medical attention. Snake Island is uninhabited now, but people used to live there for a short period until the late 1920s when, according to legend, the local lighthouse keeper and his family were devoured by vipers that slithered in through the windows. Today, the Navy periodically visits the lighthouse for upkeep and makes sure no adventurers are wandering too close to the island. Obviously, the island is forbidden for anyone outside the Navy, but there isn't a huge demand among tourists or locals. The city of Los Cabos, Mexico, holds a superlative that it's not entirely proud of: the most dangerous city in the world. The capital of Baja California Sur, the city was once known as a peaceful getaway. The outbreak of violence in the twin resort cities of Los Cabos seems to be a result of rival factions rushing to fill the vacuum left by the drug lord and escape artist known as El Chapo. The violence hasn't generally been directed at tourists. Los Cabos is one of the most popular resort regions in the country, but the US State Department still recommends increased caution for those visiting Cabo San Lucas or San Jose del Cabo. More than 1 million US tourists descend on its resorts every year, but in recent years that peace has been shattered. The Baja California Peninsula is now at the center of an unprecedented spate of violent crimes perpetrated by rival gangs. The problem has been exacerbated by the increased appetite for drugs in the United States. Local officials stress the fact that taking drugs is not a victimless crime. If American consumers can reduce their use of drugs, particularly cocaine, they will save lives across the border. In this below sea level basin, steady drought and record summer heat make Death Valley a land of extremes. Yet each extreme has a striking contrast. Towering peaks are frosted with winter snow, rare rainstorms bring vast fields of wildflowers, lush oases harbour tiny fish and refuge for wildlife and humans. And yet, Death Valley is aptly named. Especially before the advent of the national park system, many unfortunate souls perished in this hallowed desert. Death Valley is the lowest point in North America. At 282 feet below sea level, Badwater Basin is a surreal landscape that tricks the senses. That means that normally sane people can begin to hallucinate purely from this manic landscape. In July 2018, the hottest place on Earth experienced its hottest month on record. The average temperature was 108.1 degrees Fahrenheit, including overnight lows. Daytime highs reached a temperature of 127 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 days in a row. There are many documented accounts of settlers perishing in these lands from lack of food and water and no knowledge of local flora and fauna. Now, the National Park Service attempts to educate visitors about the park's hazards, but they are still forced to evacuate campers every year. The DANAKIL Desert was nicknamed the Gates to Hell by locals. This barren, inhospitable landscape is one of the world's lowest, most geologically active areas. Earthquakes, volcanoes, lava lakes, and bubbling sulfur springs are the norm rather than the exception. The sulfur mixes the iron oxides, copper salts, and other minerals, leaving behind an array of otherworldly colors. The acid lakes are as deadly as they are beautiful. In the heart of the Horn of Africa, the Danakil Depression is one of the most remote, inhospitable, and least studied locations in the world. It lies over 330 feet below sea level in a volcanic area in northwest Ethiopia, close to the border with Eritrea, aptly named Afar. The violent landscape is arguably the hottest place on the planet and one of the driest. The temperature regularly reaches 113 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning that if you enter the desert unprepared, you may never return. Locals and researchers alike are especially careful when they enter this unforgiving landscape. Many researchers believe that even a short stay in the Danakil Desert can affect health. The reason for this is a high concentration of poisonous vapors of sulfur that is complemented with the most adverse effects. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the most widely known natural mysteries in the world. More than 50 ships and 20 aircraft have gone missing in this patch of Atlantic Ocean off the eastern coast of the US. Reports of unexplained occurrences in the region date to the mid-19th century. Some ships were discovered completely abandoned for no apparent reason. Others transmitted no distress signals and were never seen or heard from again. Aircraft have been reported and then vanished, and rescue missions are said to have vanished when flying in the area. However, wreckage has not been found, and some of the theories advanced to explain the repeated mysteries have been fanciful. There are two leading theories outside of the realm of conspiracy. The first is that the magnetic field is altered in this area, causing navigational tools to fatally malfunction. The second has to do with a series of rogue waves in the area, which would catch a sailing crew unaware and sink them before they ever had time to make a distress signal. Some believe these answers are satisfactory, while others are not totally convinced. Regardless, the Bermuda Triangle represents a huge piece in mythical lore. Of the 50 most dangerous cities in the world, 47 are in the Americas and the remaining 3 are all in South Africa. Topping the list is Cape Town. Cape Town's recent spike in violent crime rates has led it to climbing the global ranking of the world's most violent cities, which may come as no surprise. South African Police Services stats reflected that this is the violence capital of the country, though crime is high all over the country. It's an undeniable fact that crime is a reality in South Africa. However, it's also important to recognise that both tourists and locals alike are very rarely affected by it in Cape Town, if they act responsibly and have the knowledge to make informed decisions. In addition, it's necessary to be aware that things can often be generalised and oversimplified by the media, and the safety of Cape Town as a holiday destination is certainly no exception to this rule. In fact, most of the violent crime occurs in the informal settlements that surround the city. Most tourists rarely enter this area, and never without an experienced guide. Don't let the ring of salty marshes along the edge of Lake Natron fool you. This body of water is one of the most inhospitable areas on Earth. It's one of the most serene lakes in Africa, but it's also the source of some of the most phantasmagorical photographs ever captured. Images that look as though living animals have instantly turned to stone. The alkaline water in Lake Natron has a pH as high as 10.5 and is so caustic it can burn the skin and eyes of animals that aren't adapted to it. The water's alkalinity comes from the sodium carbonate and other minerals that flow into the lake from the surrounding hills. And deposits of sodium carbonate, which was once used in Egyptian mummification, also acts as a fantastic type of preservative for those animals unlucky enough to die in the waters of Lake Natron. As you might expect, few creatures live in the harsh waters, which can reach 140 degrees Fahrenheit. They're home to just a single fish species, some algae, and a colony of flamingos that feed on the algae and breeds on the shore. Frequently, though, migrating birds crash into the lake's surface. When this happens, they become frozen in time from the caustic waters. However, the lake has an undeniably pretty view. The average person probably knows very little about Turkmenistan, let alone its most famous feature. The repressive Central Asian Republic has a population of 5.5 million and was once part of the Soviet Union. While it's notorious for its human rights abuses and totalitarian government, it also has the 6th largest natural gas reserve in the world. That would be a pretty uninteresting fact, except that it spawned one of the wildest sights on Earth. The DARVAZA gas crater, colloquially known as the Door to Hell, is a massive pit of flames that has been burning for decades. The Gates of Hell crater was created in 1971 when a Soviet drilling rig accidentally punched into a massive underground natural gas cavern, causing the ground to collapse and the entire drilling rig to fall in. Having punctured a pocket of gas, poisonous fumes began leaking at an alarming rate. To head off a potential environmental catastrophe, the Soviets set the hole alight, figuring it would stop burning within a few weeks. Decades later, the fiery pit is still going strong. The Soviet drilling rig is still believed to be down there somewhere, on the other side of the Door to Hell.